Leningrad, March 1949. The city still bore scars of the siege, crumbling facades, empty lots where buildings once stood, a quietness that wasn't peace, but exhaustion. Yet inside the Academy of Sciences library, a different kind of war was beginning. Maria Skuratova, 47, adjusted her glasses as she read the latest directive from Moscow: all foreign-language publications and works by ideologically unreliable authors are to be removed from circulation and destroyed. Attached was a list, hundreds of titles, dozens of names. Einstein, Freud, Rilke, Vavilov. She had expected this. Since 1948, the campaign against kowtowing to the West had intensified. First, journals were censored. Then textbooks rewritten. Now, books themselves were enemies. Maria didn't argue. She signed the receipt. Filed the order. And that night, alone in the stacks, she made a decision. If they want to burn knowledge, I will hide it in plain sight. Maria had been a librarian since 1925. She'd survived the purges, the siege, the post-war hunger. She knew the rules: speak only when spoken to, obey without question, never draw attention. But she also knew something deeper: books remember what people forget. Her method was simple, almost invisible. When a book was marked for destruction, she wouldn't remove it. Instead, she'd take it to the bindery room, a small, windowless chamber behind the main hall, and rebind it. Not with new covers. With false ones. A volume of Goethe's poetry became Principles of Soil Science. Einstein's relativity papers were wrapped in Manual for Collective Farm Accountants. Rilke's sonnets. Now, technical standards for Leningrad tram maintenance. To inspectors, the shelves looked obedient. To scholars who knew the old catalog numbers, the truth remained, hidden beneath bureaucratic disguise. By summer 1949, Maria had refined her system. She kept 2 catalogs. The official one, submitted monthly to the party committee. The real one, memorized and recorded in a small notebook hidden in the lining of her handbag. She never wrote titles. Only numbers. Code. When Professor Lebedev, a physicist under suspicion for bourgeois leanings, requested a paper on quantum theory, Maria would say aloud, "Volume 884 is missing." But as he turned to leave, she'd add quietly, "Check under 312. It's misfiled." No notes passed. No winks. Just a pause. A lowered voice. A shared understanding that in a world of lies, precision was resistance. Then came the doctor's plot, January 1953. Stalin accused Jewish physicians of plotting to assassinate Soviet leaders. Panic spread. Academics vanished overnight. Maria watched as familiar faces disappeared from the reading room: Dr. Abramovich, biologist; Professor Kagan, mathematician; young Elena Petrova, a linguist barely 25. Their personal orders, books they'd reserved, sat unclaimed on her desk. According to protocol, these were to be decontaminated, burned as property of enemies of the people. Maria couldn't do it. One freezing night, she loaded the books into a cart labeled "damaged volumes" for rebinding, and wheeled them to the basement. There, behind crates of obsolete agricultural reports, she built a hidden compartment in a false wall. She didn't know if they'd ever be read again. But she refused to let them vanish. Fear reached its peak in February 1953. Inspectors arrived weekly. They pulled books at random, checked bindings, demanded explanations. Maria stayed calm. She spoke softly, deferentially. She showed them the corrected catalog. Once, an officer held up a rebinding of Freud's Interpretation of Dreams, now disguised as a tractor manual, and asked, "Why is this here?" Maria blinked. "Mistake in the bindery, comrade. We'll correct it." He grunted, tossed it back. That evening, she changed the code. Volume 441 was now 709. She trusted no one, not even memory, to stay constant. The library fell silent. No announcement was made, but everyone knew. Maria felt no joy, only caution. Regimes change, but fear lingers. For weeks, nothing happened. Then, in June, a new order arrived: pause all destruction of literature pending ideological review. It wasn't freedom. But it was a crack in the wall. Maria began returning books, slowly, carefully. A volume of genetics to a biologist released from prison. A philosophy text to a professor reinstated after re-education. Each return was a quiet act of restoration. Not just of books, but of dignity. By 1956, Khrushchev's secret speech had begun to thaw. Censorship eased. Banned authors reappeared, cautiously, quietly. Maria watched as scholars returned to the reading room, older, thinner, eyes shadowed by years of silence. One day, Dr. Abramovich stood before her desk. He didn't ask for a book. He simply said, "You saved them." Maria looked down at her hands, still stained with glue and ink. "I just couldn't watch them burn." He reached into his coat and placed a small, worn copy of Vavilov's 5 Continents of Genetics on the counter. "They gave this back to me from my apartment. The only thing they left." Maria opened it. On the flyleaf, in her own handwriting, volume 203881. She closed it quickly. Tears welled, but she blinked them away. In this place, emotion was still dangerous. Maria never spoke of what she'd done. Not to colleagues. Not to friends. She continued her work, ordering new books, repairing bindings, guiding young researchers. But now, she added a new practice. When rebinding damaged volumes, she'd leave a tiny mark, a pencil dot on the inner hinge, invisible unless you knew to look. It wasn't a signature. It was a witness. Years later, historians would find these dots in hundreds of books, mostly foreign, mostly scientific, all once condemned. They called it the Skuratova mark. She never acknowledged it. When asked, she'd say, "Old books need care. That's all." In 1967, Maria retired. She moved to a small apartment near the Fontanka River. She kept no records. No memoirs. Only a single photograph, her, standing in the library stacks in 1940, surrounded by books. Young librarians who visited her spoke of her sharp mind, her quiet humor. None knew her secret. But in 1985, a graduate student researching Soviet censorship wrote to her. "Did you ever protect books during the purges?" Maria replied with a postcard. "Books protect themselves. They wait. We just give them time." She died 2 years later, in 1987, 1 year before the Berlin Wall fell. The truth emerged by accident. In 1992, during renovations at the library of the Russian Academy of Sciences, workers discovered a hidden compartment behind a false wall in the basement bindery. Inside, 312 books, all rebound with fake covers, all listed in 1949 to 1953 destruction orders as eliminated. Among them, Einstein's Relativity, the special and general theory, disguised as guidelines for potato storage. Rilke's Duino Elegies, standards for Leningrad sewer pipes. Vavilov's collected works, manual for collective farm bookkeepers. On the inside cover of many, a faint pencil note, Sokr. MS, saved. MS. Historians cross-referenced the finds with personnel records. Only one librarian had worked continuously in the bindery from 1948 to 1956, Maria Skuratova. Her colleagues confirmed it. Elena Kuznetsova, a junior librarian in the 1950s, recalled, she'd say, "This one needs extra glue," and take it to the back room. We thought nothing of it. Who would suspect a librarian of rebellion? But Maria hadn't rebelled. She had preserved. In a system that demanded erasure, she chose memory. In an age of noise, she chose silence. And in doing so, she saved not just books, but the future's right to remember. Today, the Skuratova Collection is housed in a climate-controlled vault at the library of the Russian Academy of Sciences. Researchers must apply for special access. But Maria's real legacy isn't in vaults. It's in every student who reads Vavilov today. In every physicist who cites Einstein without fear. In every poet who quotes Rilke in Russian. She never gave a speech. Never wrote a manifesto. Never sought recognition. She simply believed that some truths are too precious to burn, and that sometimes, the most radical act is to hide them in plain sight. As she once told a young assistant, "They can ban words. But they can't ban paper. And as long as paper exists, memory survives."